Hi, today at Studio 708 we are going to create the hip foundation for stretch fabrics. Let's get started. Today you're going to need your L-square ruler, your hip curve, a French curve, and your grid ruler. As always, a pair of scissors, and you should be using a mechanical pencil. I'm going to be using a Sharpie marker so that you can see the marks on the paper. I will be using the size 8 measurements from the book. You can use your own custom measurements. The practice would still be the same, but let's get started. That is 8 3/4. Okay, my hip depth measurement is 7 3/4. We are just going to complete the square. Make sure that you're always squaring out from your lines. If you don't, this will give you an incorrect measurement. The measurement over here will not match the measurement over here if you don't square out from your line. So make sure that you're always using your L-square ruler, lining it up with the line that you already have, and squaring out from that. Okay, this looks fairly small, but you've got to remember that this is only 1/4 of the size 8 hip measurement. So this measurement right here will just be from center front to side seam. So we're going to go ahead and label this here center front and center back, because on our knit fabrics that actually is the same for this case. At the bottom we're going to write hip level, and at the top this will be our waist. Okay, the next measurement that we need to get will be our waist arc measurement. The arc measurement just means that it's 1/4 of the total. So let's say your total waist measurement was 24, then 1/4 of that would be 6. So they can look very small on this part right here, but they really aren't once you sew all the pieces together and get the total circumference measurement. So in this case, our waist arc measurement is 6 3/8. So I'm going to line our ruler back up to the AB line, come over 6 3/8, and mark. That's just going to give us a location that we're going to shoot from. Okay, so we're going to mark this E. I'm going to put it over here kind of out of the way. Now we are going to go up 5/8 of an inch, and I'm going to use my clear grid ruler to do this. So I'm making sure that I'm lined up and it's square. We're going up 5/8 of an inch. We're going to label that F with our hip curve. And we need to make sure that we are not coming out at an angle right here and that we're not scooping out right here. So we want to make sure that we're marking a good 1 to 2 inches up here. So give us a couple of guidelines so that we can look to see. The lowest we want to go is this one right here so that we have a good base. And we need to connect our F to that point. Once you get that where you like it, go ahead and draw your line. Okay, so what I don't like about this right here is it kind of gives me this point, which I don't want. So I'm going to try to blend that in a little bit better. Okay, so it just turns out we're just smoothing that out just a hair right there so that we're still keeping that straight line. So that'll give us our hip line. We can adjust this later when we test out our sample, our muslin, to see if it's good or not. But for right now, this will get us a good base to start from. Okay, the next line that we need to create is our waistline. So We're going to do the same thing here. A good guide, a good reference here would be to put your grid ruler down and then put this ruler up against it so that you know that you're squared out from your center front line, and then just slide it until it meets the F point right here. So I'm going to scoop that up just a little bit. Okay, and do you see how we just do you see how we just blended into this line? So we need to make sure that we're keeping a square right here, square right here, square right here, and then we'll double check this one to make sure that we have a square right here too. And we do not, so let's fix that. So we're going to bring this one down a little bit lower, and then we'll blend it in from there. Okay, so we just want to make sure that when this seam sews to itself on the other side, that this is a good smooth curve right here. If we don't do that, we could find that our side seam does this with our seam line right here, and we don't want that. We want it to be able to be a nice smooth curve right there. Other times, on the flip side of that, if we came down too far right here too fast, then we could end up with a point up and down at the side seam, which we don't want either. So make sure that you're testing this out, and that truing this up would be to cut this out and really flip it over and make sure that you have a smooth line right there. Same thing down here. When this line flips right here, we need to make sure this is a smooth line right here. Because we squared up that 1 inch right here, or at least our 1/2 inch right here, then we know that this should end up being a straight line and not a point somewhere. So this is all there is to your hip foundation. So let's go ahead and cut this out. The markings that we made that are outside of your drawing, it doesn't matter, you won't need those. So let's grab our scissors and let's cut. While you're cutting on your pencil lines, because it's such a smaller line than mine is, you should be able to cut right on the pencil line. I'm trying to cut right inside my marker lines here because they're so fat. Your pencil line should be much more accurate than this. Okay, and this is your hip foundation.